I am at the Packwood Flea Market. This is George the Antique Nomad, and I am here selling for the next 3 days, so we're going to try to show you a bunch of stuff over that period of time. I'm at the Antique Nomad on Periscope, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are on the backside of Mount Rainier, and so I'm just happy to be able to show you some stuff. This is a huge flea market. It's one of the biggest antique shows I do all year. It's really not just antiques, but there are all sorts of interesting things, everything from junk to precious things. So let's take a look at what I brought, and then hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to do a walk around and show you some other stuff. Well, you can see we're in the mountains here, so let's focus on the booth. I don't really do outdoor shows ordinarily, but this is my space. I've got the tent here and a bunch of stuff spread around. You saw the tire sale from the old Firestone on the back of the vehicle here, so that was fun. And if you've got any comments or questions, let me know. Oversized load was just appropriate because that's certainly what I've got this time. I have an oversized load, in fact 2 loads of stuff here, and so we have a big variety. You'll see here a bunch of logging equipment coming up after we look at books, but we've got some children's books here. We've got Dick and Jane and Nancy Ann. Those came from a friend of mine. A lot of these were her childhood books, and she's ready to let them go to someone else who maybe has grandkids or something. We've got some interesting old paper here, Star Wars, old truck manual for Dodge. This was actually from a guy who worked for Packard, and it's all his report on how to make V8 engines, so that's pretty cool. This signature is actually Hubert Humphrey, you can see up there. Right after he ran for president. So variety of paper. We don't usually bring paper here because it's outdoors, but the weather's going to be good, so we're holding out. The red trunk is a neat looking thing. We're only charging $50 for that, so I think that'll go home with someone. Also have a bunch of vintage fashion this time, so I really brought a potpourri of things. For those of you who like the 1950s fashion, this dress has a lot of really nice work around the sequins and up at the collar there. We're going to pan out a little bit here. Some kitchenware here. All the pottery is Oul pottery from Indiana, but it's popular out west here as well. Also things that we find in the Midwest that people like on both coasts are cast iron items. This particular one is a hard to find Wagner ware piece. We have another unusual Wagner ware piece I'll show you in a minute. This little glass piece here is a cheese keeper. That's from the 1920s and 30s when the cheese would be stored that way in the stores, and then they'd cut a brick off for you. And the cool thing with the number 8 is that you open it up and it's really clean and it's got the stand. So those are pretty collectible. Some other interesting things we found. I brought a little bit of modernism. You may have seen some of these things in previous scopes that I did. We've got the genie bottle here. We've got the 1960s glass piece, the Blanco piece, the one that survived flying with Delta, is still here. Old Masonic piece, the head vase, some cool resin candlesticks, and that neat Chase Chrome Deco cocktail set back there. So those are fun. But then we get into some of the stuff that people up in this part of the world really like. A whole lot of Alaskan marine ivory. This is an elephant ivory, so there's nothing wrong with buying and selling this. Sure thing. If you have any questions, let me know. And there are a bunch of Billikens and other marine ivory pieces. The stretch bracelet is kind of a neat thing. The macaw baskets, the miniatures there, are pretty good. We also have various jewelry, a bunch of cameos this time around, as well as some interesting things in the realm of coins. We've got quite a few coins to sell this time. A Givenchy watch. More in the realm of costume jewelry out front here, but I did mention the logging stuff. So let's take a little look at some rust and dust before we go in there, because a lot of people are into these big old rusty items as well these days. This all came out of a barn. I spent a bunch of time in May back in a barn, and we found all sorts of logging stuff there. This old logging pole chain, hammers and chisels, various tools. These are meant to be to climb telephone poles. These pieces here, if they had the big long spikes, those would be to climb trees where you have to get through the bark, but these are meant just for the telephone pole scaling. And we've got old logging boots. A lot of people like these sort of rustic and beaten up looking things as decor these days. It used to be stuff people threw away, but not anymore. Big old cast iron pump there as well, and then we've got the old school desk. We like to be able to bring furniture to this particular show because it does well up here. And we have a nice little washstand commode, this oak piece from about 1900. And this is a neat piece. You can kind of see the harp there, and then it goes down into the 3 drawers and the chamber pot cabinet on the side. A lot of people like these in the front of the house now for being able to put your keys and your phones and all that digital stuff in. The piece here, this cash register, is really cool. It's from an old candy store from about 1930. This is an unusual piece here. This gong actually has the likeness of Queen Victoria at the bottom. And this would have been done close to her Diamond Jubilee, which took place, I believe, in 1897. So that's an unusual piece to find. And then coming in here, we like to bring a lot of collections of things because a lot of collectors come up here. So we've got a lot of Swiss Army knives. We've got various assortment of stag-handled knives, bone-handled knives, and so a lot of different things there. We also like to get into a lot of little interesting minutiae for collectors. We have a large collection of native and northwestern items here because we are in the Northwest. There's a lot of interest in Alaskan. This is from Dawson in the Yukon Territory. This piece dates to the early 1900s and is an unusual thing to find here. And the Skookum dolls are definitely something that we have not seen a lot of in recent times, but they were very popular in the 20s and 30s, and we've got a nice collection of those. We also have this interesting piece. This is an embroidery, and all of the panels here are children of the North in various parkas and other such things. Really cute piece that we haven't seen anywhere else. These are interesting too because these are World War I spurs. There is a 1916 mark on there that I'm sure is obscured by my hand a little bit, but there we go. 1916, and so First World War from the cavalry, hard to find. I'm going to continue to show you some other pieces. Northwest baskets have done very well at this show already. The one with the butterfly on the left is unusual. That's from Alaska. The one on the right with the geometrics, I believe to also be Alaskan. And then we have some down at the bottom here with the looser weave that are Homo in that area. We also have a really incredible piece I'd like to show you now. Let me get it out where we can actually see it in a little bit of a better light. This is a genuine papoose. This is Northern California from about 1930. And it's a really unusual piece to find, rather large piece. It's got the ticking on it. It also has this red weave at the bottom. Those are both things that give us an indication of its age. And it's just something that I've never seen in person before. So to find something like this was really a treat and something special to bring. There's one other item I have too that is not something that anybody I know has actually seen before. And that is this piece here, which I'll show you. This is called a whip socket. This is actually where you would put your buggy whips if you were a carriage driver, and this would have been for someone who was very important. It's 18 and the initials and then the date 40. So 1840 is when this is from. You can see the folk art carving work on it, and it would have been held by a leather strap. And so you can see in the back where the holes were for that. And then the whip would have been put in here and put in and taken out as they were driving. And it was a big deal. It would have been like being a truck driver back then. Not everybody could just run a team of horses in a carriage. So the fact that someone was good enough to have this made for them means they were a pretty impressive driver. A couple of other things new to us this show. This piece here on the left is a Belique. Let me take it where we can get a better look. This one is a Belique swan base. This is from about 1910, but it's actually Lennox Belique from America rather than Irish Belique. And we can see the mark if I turn it right side up. And there you go. Hopefully that's focusing for you. So Lennox Philippe, unusual piece there. Have a nice set of mantle lusters as well, and some Navajo rugs. So it's quite a variety that we have. It really is all about variety here at Packwood. There are thousands of vendors selling every sort of thing you can imagine here. And it's not all antique, but there is a lot of antique and vintage, and it's a great place to browse and look and find interesting things. This is out of the 1930s. During the Depression, they weren't sure if the bank would be open one day to the next, so if the bank was going to be open tomorrow, this would be the sign. And if it was open today, that would be the sign. And that's something that we fortunately haven't had to deal with in our modern life. It was pretty rough back then. The piano stool here, these are very popular again, partly because they rotate to different heights, so they're adjustable. You can see the rotation equipment in there. These are going to date to the 1890s, and they're selling over $100 each these days. On top of it, we've got a couple of interesting ceramic pieces, particularly the one in the middle, the ballet or the ballroom dancer. She is a piece by Huschenreuter out of Germany from about the 1950s, and very, very delicately done. New to us also is the dog bank here. This is a cast iron bank with the gilding, and he's in great shape. He's going to date to the 1920s. And spinning around here, we have some Fenton pieces, some Roseville, things that might be familiar to folks. And we've got a neat fireplace screen here. I'll back off so you can see that a little better. I better get in a little closer. Our lighting's a little funny here. So it's hand painted, and it's got the flowers in the basket. That's going to be from the 1920s. Brought in some dolls. The Miss Revlon is standing upright. She has all her clothes and all her accessories, and is a hard to find piece worth about $150. And the one sitting down is a turn of the century Armand Marseille doll. Now for guy toys, we've got some other stuff. We have this, the Constructioneer, which is like an erector set. Get into the paint by numbers here. Wade Whimsies. This is something that we haven't had out before that was fresh to us. It's nice to have them in the box. You usually see them sitting out loose, so it's kind of neat to actually see one with its original carton from the 1970s. Yes, and please do share with your followers if you would, folks. We love to have new people joining us, and we definitely are out there at the Antique Nomad on Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook. I'd like to sign up by standing with something that's kind of visually more visual, so let's do that. So this is an ice bucket, believe it or not, that you travel with, but it's for Kodak, and this is from the 1970s. I just got a big kick out of this. We've got Kodak collectors, and these things are popular actually with people from overseas as well. I have a fellow who likes anything Kodak, interestingly enough, so I think this will probably go with them. I expect they'll come by tomorrow. So if you are in the area and you're able to come out, we'd really love to have you join us. I am at the Packwood Flea Market. This is George the Antique Nomad, and I am here selling for the next 3 days, so we're going to try to show you a bunch of stuff over that period of time.